So welcome to Pump Up My Productivity for Solopreneurs. And we all know each other, which is really kind of cool. And we've met either when I was living in Sydney or we met because I live up here in Brisbane. And I am delighted to spend 45 minutes with you looking at productivity for the solopreneur. Now, I think it's a bit more flexible than just solopreneurs. I think it's people in small business, however you want to define it. And I saw a great article just recently where the author wrote an X in front of preneur, because I think that's the way we're going, because we do have entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, mumpreneurs, edupreneurs. So, it's all about the preneur these days. Now, to get started, someone's got their pen out, which I think is awesome. I love it when people play. The last webcast I did, someone graffitied all over my face, which I thought was funny. Please don't do that just yet. Or if you want to, it's all good fun. So can I please ask you, just on the scrap of paper, if you're driving, just think. But if you're at a desk, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to write down the 5 most important people in your life. Desley, no cheating, because I know you know this one.
Right, okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That's right. I'm going to put you on mute though, so that we've got a good clear line. Is that okay?
Yep, sure.
Okay. So when you've put down your 5 names of the most important people in your life, can you just put your initial or a yes or anything like that in the chat box? I know that you've done that, please. Or you can think of the 5 people. Thanks, Lance. Thanks, Annalisa. Thanks, Jane. Okay. All right. So just while we're... Oh, Catherine's given them all away. Thank you, Catherine. Someone's writing on their iPad. I think that's awesome. Yes, thank you. Cool. All right. So hold on to that, because we will come back to it. I just want to make sure we get that down first. So what I look at the productive solopreneur as someone is you're every department of your business. You're not just the CEO. So you need to look at every aspect of your practice or your business through a productivity lens in order to achieve more faster and reduce your stress, re-engage with your loved ones, and enjoy the success of the dream that you're chasing. And so I think that's a broad kind of look at what I think a productive solopreneur needs to have some focus on. And if we look at it from an industry perspective, 9 out of 10 businesses in Australia are actually small business. We've got some power. And I know in the last few years, a lot of chambers and small business have been lobbying government for that recognition. But the thing is about small business is that it's very volatile. And with non-employing small businesses having the lowest survival rate of all businesses in Australia, the interesting bit or the paradox to that is that they can be more agile and flexible, and they can enter and exit markets really quickly. Women are on the increase in starting small business. 34% in 2015. It's a third. It's slowly climbing. It could be better. And the other thing about the industry, when we look at it from small business, is that if the stats there on the money or the earning, in 2015, a freelancer was earning $39,000. And so I did a little bit of calculation, and I'm no mathematician by any stretch, but I added inflation into it. And so if it was 2017, a freelancer earns about $41,000 a year. Now that works out to about $788 a week. And our poverty line, according to the OECD, is $400 a week for a single adult. So that leaves a little bit of a margin, and it's okay. But let's face it, we've got rent or mortgage. We've got the fixed and variable costs of running the business. We've got any dependents potentially that come into play with that. So it's not huge money. And I think we need to talk about money more from the perspective of it's okay to say, I want to earn some money. I think that we often shy away from admitting that money is a driver. Yes, there are other drivers and other ways to define success, but for some people, you know, having a decent income so that they can contribute to their family is really important, and contribute more than just putting a meal on the table. It's actually that little bit more money to have the freedom of choice of activities and things like that. So I think it's really important that what keeps the solopreneur awake at night is that they're trying to be everywhere all the time, you know, being the CEO and the head of every department. And just yesterday, when I was putting a little shout out about this webcast, this is a response I got. Hey, love, will that include how to clone oneself and negate the need for sleep? That was actually, and she actually can't be on the webcast, but she's getting the recording, so you know who you are. So there you go. That's the life of a solopreneur. We know we've got long hours. Sometimes we hate selling and it feels awkward and bizarre to sell ourselves. You know, we get the frustration of the brain pickers and tire kickers who are really out for whatever free things they can get from us. They don't understand the value of what you're offering. And that makes it also complicated. And so we've got to learn how to share our value and draw that line in the sand about when it's okay to give away free stuff and when people need to have a value exchange. And I think one of the other things that happens for us as solopreneurs is that, you know, we feel like we need to learn how to do everything because I can't afford to pay anyone else to do it yet, or they can't really do it the way I want it, or I need to learn how to do it so that I know what I'm expecting when I outsource it to someone else. And all of those are legitimate. They're just the things that go into the massive melting pot of, you know, the issues that are on the plate for a solopreneur. So I want to ask you, what comes into your roadblocks of productivity? So if you can put it into the chat box, I want to know what your biggest productivity roadblock is. Distractions and interruptions. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jane. Now, while people are adding in, I'll share one of the many I had when I first started, and that was I was going to the wrong networking things, and not wrong because they were terrible. It was my audience or my client. I was going to the wrong place where they hung out. And that was a big thing for me in the beginning. I spent a lot of money and a lot of time going to the wrong networking events. Staying on task while working from home due to cleaning, kids stuff, Dr. Phil. Okay, that's fair enough. And when I was in uni, I was the terrible last minute assignment submitter when I was at uni, and I had a shared house at one stage, and I woke up everyone in the house because at 3 o'clock in the morning, procrastinating, I decided to defrost the freezer. And to defrost the 1,000-year-old dinosaur freezer we had, I used a meat tenderizer and a blunt knife, tapping away at the ice. And so that was a little lesson for Sally to be a little less last minute and a little less procrastinating, because the impact on others around me is pretty annoying. So that was a good lesson. So Catherine says unnecessary interruptions, Jane. Lack of routine and structure. That's a big one. That's a massive one, Jane. I can resonate with that one. And prioritising tasks, definitely. Thank you. And I think some of the other things that come up for us are, you know, we probably don't necessarily express them to too many people, but maybe this need to do it yourself so you know what it all means, and maybe it's that fear of failure or a fear of success. You know, there's a big risk here and it has to pay off. And I think some of the other things that come into play with our productivity is the overwhelm and things where one of the ones that someone has just said to me recently was that, you know, no one around me gets why I want to do this. And while they mean well, they keep telling me I should just go and get a job and get a regular paycheck, and they don't get the dream that I'm chasing. And because that pressure's there, I end up procrastinating. I get overwhelmed and just stop. And I think that's a really important thing. And another one that comes up, I think, is that we do a lot of comparing. I call it, we have comparisonitis. So particularly with social media, we see the beautiful front covers of everybody's lives, but we don't actually see the masking tape that holds everything together. And the classic example, I always remember this, is that a girl I went to high school with she got into one of those, I'm going to call it a booby magazine, because it's one of those, I don't know what it's called anymore, but it was a magazine where you're topless and you're in a bath, and you know, she's a very beautiful girl, and no judgment on the choice of what she was doing. But the lesson, or the thing that really came clear for me, was that she showed me how they masking taped all her bits and pieces into certain places so that they sat in a certain way for the photo. So, you know, we all know that magazines get photoshopped, but that was a lesson I got 20-something years ago about how it's really not all that real. And that's a big thing for us. So Desley, you said procrastinating, setting boundaries. Yeah, completely, totally agree. So I come together with what I call the productivity model. And this is something that's been, it's come from me spending a lot of time with a lot of corporate clients, but also over the years, and the whole 8 years I've been in business, listening to my colleague solopreneurs. And I think the biggest thing is, so often we either are invisible in how we feel we show up with our productivity. It doesn't mean we're not doing anything. It just means that what we do doesn't have the impact we want it to. And so at that level, at that -10 when it comes to productivity level, we need a whole lot of insight, a lot of auditing about what's going on. But if we're a bit better, then we might be more reactive, as opposed to being able to be planned, boundaries in place, responding in a timely way, but not feeling like we have to react to everything. And as we move up through that model, we might be a better decision maker, and therefore we're in a position to automate what we're doing. And so ultimately what we want to do is prosper. And so I want to ask you, if you're looking at that model, and I've only really just briefly described it, where would you think you were on the model over the course of an average week or so? A lot of the people I speak to, they hover around 2 and 3, like resolve and discern. And sometimes, yeah, Jane, exactly. It's, you know, we can dance across both those lines a lot. And every now and again, we get up into automate when we feel like we've really kicked a goal and got a system in place. So insight to resolve. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I think this is one of those things, different aspects for different elements. Absolutely, Lance. Yeah, there'll be things that you do in your business that are prospering, definitely. So when we're at that level, it's not like there isn't anything to do. There's definitely lots to do, and that's the value adding and the growth element. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Lance. For different things, you could be at different levels, definitely. Thanks. Desley, resolve. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think this is a valuable model to start with, and this is what I start with all my productivity clients. We actually start with an audit, so we know where we are, because if you don't know where you are, you never know where you're going to get to. But another way of looking at this whole model is, you know, this is what we might feel at that lower end. You know, we've got to have, you know, we're playing table tennis on our own, so we've got to be swinging the bat left, right and centre, and just hoping that speed will actually hit the ball over the net and we could get somewhere. Whereas when we move up that productivity model, this is where we are. We get the shot, you know, and you know, you need some of this and you need more of this, I think. That fist pump, yes, I've got there. I've made it. And I think that's a really clear distinction, or a good analogy between that model of at which end you might be, whether you're down this end just swinging crazy trying to get through the day, versus really fist pump and nailed it and you scored the point, or basically got the sale. So in the next time, this whatever I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say, Sally? Over the period of time that we've got left, I want us to cover off the three main areas that need your focus in order to boost productivity, and so you get those results. I want to share with you the 3 hidden productivity zappers and what you can do about them, why you multitask to get through everything but you don't feel like you're actually getting ahead, and some extra tips and strategies to implement immediately so that you can, improve your productivity, reduce stress, and achieve more. Is that okay? I know we're probably, even with that, we're probably just only scratching the surface of productivity for solopreneurs, but I'll also have Q&A at the end too. So, and feel free to, thanks Lance, feel free to ask questions as we go through. I'll always keep my eye on that chat box. So just before we start though, why me? And I want to share, most of you know me and you've known me for quite a while. I think Annalisa, we met at a coffee meeting and we'd met previously when I was already living in Abu Dhabi, and we met on Twitter. So I've been in business for 8 years, and right back in the beginning, I struggled. I struggled with that concept of going from employee to solo, as well as going from the Middle East back to, 8 years ago, back to an employee to solopreneur, and also going from living as an expat to living in Sydney, and Sydney's not my hometown. I was confused. I was confusing my market because I was telling my market I could be all things to everyone. So that meant I was chasing my tail and therefore not really achieving as much as I could be. I struggled with a lot of well-intended rubbish advice. And thankfully, I know there are some horror stories out there about people who have spent money on some pretty bad advice. I didn't spend that much, but it was enough of going down the rabbit hole of one person's advice to waste the time and the effort of doing something, and then turn around and go, this is not for me. This isn't my thing. This is your template that worked for you, and that's great, but not for me. And since then, and for the years and years that I've been working with corporates, there are some common themes that have come up around productivity, but there's also some unique things that are just for solopreneurs. And so that's why I feel like, because of my experience of working in corporate and being in the corporate world, and now also 8 years into working for myself, I think I've got a really good insight into the productivity for solopreneurs. So that's why I thought I would actually launch a program to help solopreneurs, which I'll talk about at the end, if that's okay with you. So let's get into the 3 main areas I said we'd talk about. And this is your personal productivity, your professional productivity, and your people productivity. And so what I mean by these 3 areas when it comes to personal productivity is looking at your habits, what triggers your procrastinations, and what are your time wasters, as just 3 examples. So a classic time waster is obviously surfing the net, having 27 tabs open and not really getting what you want from why you're online in the first place. Another classic time waster is doing all the little things before you actually start the project that you said you'd start. And I'm going to go back up to Annalisa's point. Staying on task while working from home due to cleaning, kid stuff, and Dr. Phil. There's Matt Church is an exceptional thought leader, but he's the first to admit that if he's got a task to do, he will go to the toilet, make a cup of coffee, just check something. He'll do a lot of time wasting things before he actually sits down and says, now I'm ready to start. So what are your time wasters? What do you do that impacts on you? This is not what other people do to you. It's actually what you do to sabotage your time. We can have a confessional of time wasters. Okay, you need a framework to follow for prioritizing. Okay. What stops you from prioritizing? What's the thing is it the framework, not thinking it through, not having a plan? Is that what you mean, Catherine? Copious cups of coffee. I'll sleep at the job about, yeah. Research and professional learning. Oh, perfect one, Jane. I totally agree with that. I had a very dear girlfriend in the Middle East say to me once, so I was talking about starting my business, and she said, you know, every time you talk about it, you also talk about what you need to learn before you actually start it. You're pretty smart, Sally. When are you going to start it? And that was a really kind kick in the pants for me. So I think that was really good. So I understand that one, Jane, very well. Not having a clear plan and following it, I go off track. There are no penalties. Yeah. Having an online business, I get very distracted by FB, internet, 20 tabs open, always playing catch up, and I'm only accountable to myself. Okay, wanting to finish this puzzle, reading blogs. Yes, yeah. Thank you for sharing. We'll have therapy afterwards, okay? That's awesome. And look, we all have them. It's about paying attention to what they are. And maybe if they're enjoyable things, let's not get rid of them. Let's schedule them, you know. And accountability is a big one that goes with that as well. So thank you. So from professional productivity, what we're talking about here is the way in which you do your work, and it sort of aligns with personal. But it's about whether you multitask, how you batch up the tasks you do. Do you time chunk, so you're doing one activity at a time, particularly the deep thinking stuff. You know, if you've got a client that requires something from you and it's going to need you to do a period of deep thinking around being able to create or serve or deliver, then it's time chunking is fantastic, because what you do is you get rid of every other distraction. You tell people to leave you alone. You set the expectations, and then you turn off all the bells and whistles. You even put your phone onto airplane mode, maybe leave your timer on. And for whatever time you set, maybe 45 minutes, that's the one task you're going to work on. Now, chances are, if you set yourself up to do this, a lot of the time, maybe not all the time, but a lot of the time, you actually finish the task faster, sooner, quicker, and then you find yourself actually in a zone where you can add more value to it. So I think the concept of time chunking is awesome, and we can unpack that a little bit further if you want later on. So the third element that I think is really important for productivity is your people productivity. Now, this is around when you outsource to other people and when you delegate and give feedback to your suppliers and to the people or virtual assistants or whoever you've got working with you, whether it's permanent or on a project-to-project basis. It's also about how you handle people who want to tell you that you should just get a job. You know, it's about making sure that you're managing the people who have an influence over you and your business and the results you want to get. I think it's really important that you have clarity around what you're doing so that you can then manage the people and the expectations of the people, and people know your standards as well. And that's another element to people productivity. The clients that walk into your space, the clients that or the family who influence you need to know exactly what your expectations are. And that's having the courage sometimes to speak up. Catherine, no one tells me what to do. Well, that's good. That's awesome. So they're the three key elements, and we can unpack that for hours. I think we're really just touching on these three areas, and we do go into this further into the program that I've delivered. But the other three hidden zappers that I think we don't pay attention to enough or spend enough time in are the relationships, the clarity, and the boundaries. And so you've already alluded to boundaries, but also clarity is there too. So let's start with relationships. And this is about how you manage the relationships of the people who are the tire kickers and the brain pickers, and also family, and also your networking relationships, and making sure that you have strong connections, that you are networking, that you are telling people who you are and what you're on about, and you're not just one of those business card throw people. And I know I've met all of you, and I know you don't do that, but it's about being clear about the relationships that you have and why you show up to events or why you show up to a group of people. What's the relationship you want to have with them? And boundaries is essential, and this is about knowing at what point does someone get free advice or free service versus when they pay. So that's the coffee meetings, the tire kickers, the people who go, can I just pick your brain for 5 minutes? Or they send you an email asking you a question, and then it goes backwards and forwards, and then, 30 emails later, you're thinking, hang on, where the heck? We've crossed the line here. So it's about no, not now, or not me. So I'm going to repeat that. No, not now, and not me. Now, that's the very simple way of saying it. But it's also when someone says, can I buy you a coffee? Because I just want to pick your brains. You can say, how about we pay our own coffee and be prepared for me to pick your brains? That way it's nice and equitable. Now, you might not want anything from this person, but you can certainly ask them for a testimonial or a referral. And here's the thing, testimonials versus referrals. Which one would you prefer to have? You got an answer? A referral, yeah, definitely. Yeah, testimonials are great. They give you credibility, but referral helps to pay the bills because it's a deeper, that's right, thank you, everyone. It's a deeper business development activity. So that's awesome, definitely. So people usually are quite okay when you say, let's make it equitable. I'll pick your brains just as much as you can pick mine. And so even if you don't want anything, ask for a referral. Now, clarity is around your own goal setting. It's about planning. It's about having a 90-day focus and a theme for 90 days so that you can crack on and actually be working towards something so that when you get to the end of your 90 days or whatever time period you choose, you can actually see the results. And this also includes, with the clarity, having that level of accountability and thinking about who you can have in your sphere to help keep you accountable. So they're the three main areas, and then the three main zappers that I think are really important when it comes to your productivity as a solopreneur. Now, one of the things I said we'd talk about was multitasking. And why do you multitask? I think this is a really interesting question. I want to hear from you why you multitask. So just type into the chat box why you multitask if you do. And I'll tell you while you're doing that is that one of the reasons why people multitask is because there's a rush of busyness. There's a sense of being busy, and that way we think we're getting a lot done. But unfortunately, it's a really awesome activity to keep you busy versus actually achieving something. So to save time, I think it's a quicker way of getting things done, but it's actually not. That's right. Bang on, Annalisa. Short attention span, yes. Goldfish bowl syndrome, is it, Jane? Yep. I can't. I'm Mal. Thanks, Lance. I think that's something we could all learn, It really is bad for us, and it's not multitasking. And I think you all know this. It's task switching. We lose up to 40% of productivity when we multitask, and we can also drop 15 IQ points when we're multitasking. Now, our error rates can double and triple when we multitask, so it really doesn't bode well for us at all. So when it's the deep thinking work, when it's the being present with your clients and being present with your family, your loved ones, when you're being present with the most important work that you've got to do, which is the work you're getting paid to do, don't multitask. Yes, there's going to be times when you're doing a couple of things, trying to switch backwards and forwards. Let's face it, let's get real. But when it's down to doing the important heavy lifting, don't multitask. So Desley, trying to get everything done, although I know it doesn't work. I'm a mum, so of course I can do it. Yeah, I think we kid ourselves about that one, don't we? And then we end up being burnt out, which is the other health element to this. And multitasking also comes down to things that we don't often think about. We can, when we have snacks at our desk, I worked with a lady who had a big jar of lollies on her desk, and she, throughout the entire day, the hand would go into the jar and into her mouth, into the jar, into her mouth. It was routine. It was unconscious, And so that was while she was doing her emails and while she'd be on the phone, her hand would just go in that jar, And so she has no way of knowing how much junk food she was putting into her system. So even little things like that add up. Multitasking can be bad for our health in a big way. And, you know, when we have error rates doubling and tripling when we multitask, that means it takes us longer to get it done and it's going to cost us more money. So just a couple of points there about multitasking. Now, I said I'd give you some productivity boosters. So at the beginning of the webcast, I asked you to put down the 5 names. And we'll also talk about prime time, and then we'll also talk about the work that pays. So, Catherine, you wrote down, I'll scroll back up to your list. Where are you? You put you down as second. Thank you for that. You put your son, then yourself, then your mum, and then your dad, and then a question mark for 5. Did anyone put themselves first on the list at all? Nope. No, never. Me. I would hope so, Desley, because Desley, you got a lecture about this the other day, didn't you? Yeah. So Jane and Lance and Lisa, did you actually put your name on the list anywhere? Did it at least appear on the list? Ah, okay. Now, what you should see on your screen is the oxygen mask. And that's actually a photo of my computer, my desk, and my wall in my old house, which we've only just moved from. And I was at a stage where I was not putting me first. And so I went to Facebook, because, you know, Facebook is the font of all knowledge, and found out where I could buy an oxygen mask from. And so I bought it. And so it hangs, right now it's hanging over on my flip chart, but I'm going to get it set up so it's right in front of me again, like in this picture in my old house, to remind me to be first. And we have the oxygen mask because, as you know, you've all flown in a plane. The hosties tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. And they do that so that you are actually looking after you, and then you're capable of looking after others. It's such a powerful message that I don't think we take it seriously enough. And it's okay to put yourself first. Your self-care fills you up, so you've actually got even more to give to others. And it's counterintuitive in a lot of ways, but it's so important to do that. I want you to think about that. The other thing is prime time. Now, this is just an example of someone's prime time from the course of when they wake up throughout the entire day to when they go to bed, and looking at their energy level. So if you had a look at what's on the screen there, that sort of morning period is when their energy level is high. That's probably their prime time. It may be caffeine induced, but that's when people should be doing their heavy thinking, the heavy loads of work. And then if there's an afternoon spike at all, then that's the other time when people should be doing, if this is their prime time, then when the peaks are high and you've got that energy, that's when you should be focused on your most important work, your most deep thinking, okay? One of the things that I don't know if you would even pick up on this is that I always schedule my webcasts in the afternoon. And that's because I want my clients to be doing some of their heavy lifting in the morning. And the reason why I do that is because, and Christina Guidotti, who's a thought leader, she says that people in our particular game who work for ourselves, we need to be making our phone calls to our clients and to our prospects between 9 and 11 in the morning. Because between 9 and 11, they've had their coffee, they're settled in, and they're ready to start their day, and they're more likely to say yes in the morning, at least to listen to you. So therefore, I'll always have a webcast in the afternoon. Every now and again, I might trial one in the morning, but most of the time, 99% of the time, they're in the afternoon. Yeah. And the other thing about being prime time and working out when you are at your most energetic and able to do your most focused and most attention into something is really important. So as a bit of homework for you, I want you to think about when is, plotting, when you've actually got the most amount of energy and focus. And that's when you should be doing that work. The other thing that links in with the last or the third productivity booster is about doing the work that pays. Now, the night before is when you set up your list for the next day. And the reason why I say that is because one of the biggest things that we struggle with sometimes is selling ourselves. And so selling ourselves requires us to actually speak to people, and global time zones are a challenge. They certainly are, Lance. And so if you can do your list last thing today, set up for tomorrow, that means that when you get to your desk tomorrow, your list is done for you. You're not wasting time trawling through your contact list, procrastinating, making the important calls. Now, Keith Abraham, who's an awesome speaker and a goals thought leader, he has 7 people he contacts every single day, 7 without fail. Now, when he says contacts, it might be an email, it might be a phone call, it might be sending them a book or an article, but it's 7 contacts every single day. I do 5, and at the moment I'm doing a bit more than that because I've just released the book and I'm sending a book out. So, you know, every single day we're contacting people, and that sort of goes with your prime time, and also judging it according to the other people's prime time, but also in doing the work that's really valuable for you. I want you to have a look at the bottom left-hand quadrant of this model, and that's the urgent, not important. And this is usually other people's urgent. So it's definitely not always your important. And in this model is actually adapted from Eisenhower's matrix that Stephen Covey made really popular. And instead of it being delegate, which is usually a corporate activity, I've kind of reframed this and said, this is the detour. So reframe the way you handle interruptions and meetings and some emails and calls. And that means maybe it's about trialing a different way. Maybe it's about setting up email autoresponders that say, I only answer my emails 3 times a day. Maybe it's about not answering a call until you've heard a message and then you know how to respond to that call. Maybe it's about letting it go to message bank and then listening to it and then calling back. I know someone who does that. They'll never answer the phone. Unless they know the number, of course. But if they don't know the number, they let it go to message bank, they listen to who it is, and then they respond. Because then they know whether it's going to be a tire kicker, brain picker, or you know, an actual blood pumping through their veins, real prospect for them to have a conversation with. You know, managing interruptions is you can't always get rid of them, but you can certainly minimize them, and there's a lot of strategies you can do. So I wanted you to pay attention to that bottom left quadrant. The other quadrant I really want you to focus on is where the money comes from, and that's up here. This is where your relationships and your projects and your planning come into play. When we focus on the relationships, when we focus on getting our work done, and then we also make sure that we're sticking to the plans, and we're reviewing our plans and prioritizing daily in accordance to our plan, that's when we'll see the money come in. And I think that's a really important thing. So those 2 quadrants that are diagonally opposite, I think, are really valuable. And the other 2 are obviously going to be in play as well. When we have a crisis, we have to deal with it. Now, a crisis is a real crisis. I mean, you know, you've got a flat tire, someone in your family is sick. It's the real stuff. It's not what we think the drama tells us it is. It's really urgent and it's really important. But also the not urgent and not important, I don't want these to be deleted. I'd rather them be limited, because let's face it, social media and TV, particularly social media, you know, we step into social media for work reasons, but we also step into social media for our pleasure. And so it's about being more conscious of which one it is and when we're doing it. You know, schedule it. This is my 30 minutes of social media for fun, and I'm okay with that. Or this is my 30 minutes of social media for work, so I'm going to be posting content. I'm going to curate. This is work. So it's not about never having any enjoyment. It's about being more conscious of it and making sure that we're aware of it, we schedule it, we work it in, and make sure it works for us. So hope that makes sense. And are there any questions? Any comments? Do you want me to go back to that slide? Okay. So I'll indulge just for a moment, and in line with releasing The Productive Leader, which is my new book, and like I said at the start, I am really focused on helping solopreneurs get more productive, because I think when we do, we actually get more results. And one of the things that I think solopreneurs actually are missing, and you guys said it before, I think Annalisa, you said it maybe, it's about having accountability. And Catherine, you said, you don't answer to anyone. No one tells you what to do. I think accountability is one of the things that we miss when we actually work for ourselves at times. And it's really tough to stay focused and motivated in order to get what we want. And so based on that, I've created this 90-day program that will boost productivity. It uncovers what hinders your productivity, gives you greater awareness to manage your time, energy, and focus, reduce your time wasters, and we've covered that a little bit, but we go much deeper when we're in the program, and look at your personal productivity. We actually go through a procrastination trigger assessment. We direct and better control your time, resources, priorities, and your schedule. Put the notion of important and urgent back into perspective rather than living under a constant pressure of trying to get more done faster. Get lots of strategies in play so that you get better results, and so that you increase your self-confidence and a sense of achievement, because you actually had some achievement. I think that's really important. And so the program itself is a 90-day program that includes some pre-work that sets us up to make sure that we're really clear about where your productivity is now, help you set some personal goals for getting great results. There's a one-day face-to-face workshop. Now, in Brisbane, it's the 16th of November, but I also have some people in Sydney who are keen to do it, so I can come up with a Sydney date as well. Then there's one-on-one private coaching session, and then there'll be 2 one-hour group webcasts to track progress and discuss the productivity hacks, share reflections and results. I'm also going to put us into a Facebook group for networking, support and accountability. And I think the accountability piece and the support piece is really crucial. You'll also get a copy of my book. There'll be the workbook that goes with all the goodies that come with the one-day workshop. There'll be the assessments, and there'll be 21 days of productivity hot shots that you'll get for 21 days after the workshop, just to prompt you, just to keep you in the right, to help you start your day on the right foot of being pumped and really pushing through with your productivity. So that's the program really in a very, very quick nutshell. If you want some more information, can you just type yes into the chat box? And what I'll do is I'll leave that slide up, and I'm going to unmute everyone and see if there's any questions or any comments. Hello, did someone say something? Any questions, any comments? You're all off mute, by the way. Oh, you're just muted again. Unmute all. There we go. Anyone want to comment? Anyone got a question? We went pretty fast through the content. And it's 3:44, or it is 44 minutes past the hour for my daylight saving and non-daylight saving friends. Anything? You're all gone quiet on me. Would you rather just chat into the chat box?
No, it's very helpful, Sally. It's one of my issues at the moment is prioritising things, and so it's been a good kick in the pants for me.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Sure.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. The use of the word prolific, which is defined as producing abundantly. Well, that's what we want. Fair enough. You're keeping it real, Annalisa. You've got kids in the background. That's keeping it real. Yeah. All right. Well, to respect your time, feel free to jump off whenever you want to jump off. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes if you want to ask me anything. But thank you for your time. I will send the recording through. If you have any questions, sally@sallyfolleylewis.com. But you all know me. We've been around the traps together, so feel free to shoot me a message or a question or anything else like that. And I'll send through some more information to you, Desley. So thank you. Take care. I will stop recording. I can't find out where the recording's gone.